Welcome to Tea and Tarot with me, your host, Yashna. Each week I'll share what I've learned as I dive deeper into the world of tarot. I've got my cards in front of me, my cup of tea, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. This is Tea and Tarot.
Welcome to this week's episode of Tea and Tarot. This week I'm going to do something a little different than the last couple weeks. I'm not going to break down a new major arcana card. Instead, I am going to be opening up my Light Seers guidebook because it came in the mail recently and I haven't really had a chance to go through it and read all of the cool content that's in here. So I'm going to share some of the different tidbits, read through the first major arcana cards that have already been covered in past episodes, and then I'm going to do a reading from the book, because one thing that's really cool is that there's a ton of spreads in here. So there are so many different ideas for readings, and oh my gosh, I just want to do all of them. So let's do it. Let's break down this book. First off, this book is called Tarot for Light Seers, written by Chris Ann, who is also the creator of the Light Seers tarot deck, which is what I practice with regularly. The book itself is pretty big. There's a lot of content in here. I've skimmed through the entire thing, but overall it is almost 300 pages. So if you're wondering if you're going to get your money's worth when you get it, you definitely will. So a lot of the content that's in this book is also on her website, because I have referenced the Light Seers website several times when I'll do card readings, when I want more information. But it's honestly so much nicer to read it in print and to have a hardcover book I can reference and look at afterwards. So this book is gorgeous. She has a lot of different information in here on some of the tips when you first get started with reading tarot. Some of it is a lot of introspection and reflection on why you want to practice tarot if you're new. One of the questions in here to really tap into your intuition is, how do you personally interpret the world? Do you know what your cues are? When you hear something that is true or emotionally moving, something that resonates with you, do you know what those types of things are? Or maybe you've never really thought about it before, but tarot is another layer of adding meaning to your life, trying to help you reflect and interpret what's going on around you. So it's really important to understand how you yourself interpret things around you, how you process, and how tarot might play into that if you start practicing. She has a lot of content in here about light seer cards and shadow seer cards, which makes a lot of sense because this entire deck is about light and shadow meanings for the same cards. And one thing she kind of notes in here that I really like is that you need light and shadow to really balance each other out. They're two sides of the same coin and give meaning to each other. So whenever you're doing readings, you always have to look for both sides of it. No card is ever truly just light and no card is ever truly just shadow. Every card holds both meanings, but it's up to you on how you interpret it or how it might apply to the reading you're doing at that moment. And I think that's really important to remember, especially when you draw a shadow card or you draw a card that normally just has a darker meaning generally, because you don't want to just focus on that. You also want to focus on the light side and what is the message that it's trying to convey to help push you forward and help you continue to grow. She describes a lot of what her process was like to create this deck, and I think it's really interesting because it is definitely like on my bucket list, long-term goals to maybe create my own tarot deck at some point, but I don't even know where to start. And something she kind of noted in here is when she started, it was hard to conceive what the whole deck would look like, but she started with a couple cards, and once she got some of the first cards made, then that helped inspire the rest of them. And one of the cards that she completed, the 5th one, was the Queen of Pentacles. And after she created that one, she said that she was mesmerized by the grace and wisdom of the guide she had created. And she feels that the Queen of Pentacles helped guide her through the rest of this deck's creation, which is really interesting and really cool to me. As she was creating the deck, she thought about what conversations and stories are you having with every single card. And that's something that's in this deck that I'm going to share for the major arcana that I've already covered. But each card has a story. The character, the imagery in the card is actually part of its own story. And that adds more meaning to it. It makes it a little easier to interpret. It almost feels like you're having a conversation when you do a reading with the cards, which is really cool. It's not something I've ever really thought about or something I've done myself, but I've read a couple of the short stories in here, and each one has made it seem like each card is more personable and a little easier to interpret. And the other thing that I think is really cool when she was creating this deck is she herself, like Chris Ann, was imbuing the deck with her own energy and her intentions. And the intention she had as she created this deck was, let it be healing. That was her mantra throughout the creation of this deck. With each card she created, as it all came together, she kept chanting, let it be healing, let it be healing, let it be healing. And I think that's truly what this deck is. It's a way, not every card is necessarily healing, but every card comes with its message of how do you overcome the pain or overcome whatever hurt you're in right now and move forward. Each card comes with lessons. So it really is a healing deck. It's not about wallowing in a moment. It's about, okay, what are these cards telling me? And what are the messages I need to receive today so that I can continue to grow and move forward tomorrow? A lot of the other initial content in here is the same stuff I kind of already talked about in my initial episode. She talks about major versus minor arcana, what it means when a card is upright versus in the reversal, some ideas on how to connect with your cards, such as picking your light and your shadow seer. And then there's several pages with just different spreads. Each of them is very different, and they're not the typical pull cards for a love reading, career reading, that kind of stuff. They're kind of more intentional with a question in mind. So I'm going to come back and do one of these spreads at the end of this episode because there are a lot of them, and I do want to try and get through all of these at some point over this podcast. But I think for the one I'm going to do today is the anxious loops spread, because I do have a lot of anxiety in my life, and this is a spread around how do you understand that and then how do you move on from that. So before we do that, we're going to jump into the major arcana. Now, this book is, I can't keep saying it, it's gorgeous. So for the major arcana, you have the card on there, you have a lot of notes about the different symbols around it, and then there's a lot of content to help you understand the Fool. There's the story about the character in the card, there's the message the Fool brings when you draw it in a reading, the light and shadow seer meanings, and then there's some questions you can ask to help do a focused reading, or if you draw this card, some questions to just help prompt you to reflect even more. So to start off, I'm going to read the full story. On the edge of an epic journey, the Fool peers into the abyss below and senses the seed of life calling out to her. She sees the opportunity and stardust swirling, and she knows that her dream begins with a single step. She's not sure what she will learn or exactly where she's headed, but she has clarity about one thing. She will need to jump in order to begin. With her crystal amplifier to guide her, and her wand to protect her. She feels her toes slide past the threshold of her current reality. She sends one last intention prayer up to the universe and lets go, feeling the rush of the unknown rise up to meet her. She falls into the void where her beautiful future awaits. There's all the symbols that I had tried to break out originally and didn't really know the meaning of are all on here. So in her hair, she has tiny red dots, and those are seeds of pomegranates from the priestess. Her yellow dress is representative of optimism, happiness, new ideas, mental activity, building confidence. Her feet are a little stuck on the cliff, and that's kind of more symbolic of trust. Does she trust herself to take this next step? Does she need to stay a little more grounded because she's acting impulsively? The staff she carries is for protection. The amethyst crystal is for healing, protection, and also crystals usually serve as a gateway to the higher realms. It can also represent initiation and naivety. And then she is falling into the seed of life. Below her is the sacred geometry for the first step of creation, consciousness, electromagnetic spectrum of light. It's the blueprint of the universe. So her first step into that. And then the general vibrations of vibrating strings of light around her are to help draw her to that new future. So that's all I'll share about the Fool. I don't want to hash out everything again. Really interesting additional content. There is a secondary quote in here, kind of tagline for the Fool. So the first one that I had shared in that episode was, "I awaken my soul path and I am ready for adventure." The other one is "Trustful. Foolishly? Maybe, but this is how dreams are launched." Let me take a sip of my matcha. This is my tea of choice today, is my usual cup of matcha. I do not stray from it too often, especially when I'm doing this in the early afternoon. So moving on to the next card, the Magician. The Magician's story is, deeply entranced by his state of co-creation, the magician harnesses the power of the elements with the skill of a masterful alchemist. In doing so, he unites the world above with the world below. He shapes his reality by aligning the cosmos and the earth into the present moment. He doesn't believe he is creating his reality through thought alone. Rather, he is aligning his life with one of the many possibilities that already exist in the swirling ocean of potential. He brings his imagined world to reality by moving ideas from the ethereal plane to the physical plane, and he gives them shape, life, and form. He is a powerful manifester who speaks the ancient languages of elements, healing, training, and magic. With the infinity sign stitched into his hood and Metatron's sigil tattooed on his arm, he's reminded of his innate ability to connect the perpetual cycle of source energy that flows between the cosmos and the earth. He speaks steadily, as above, so below, and his creation bubbles up from his universe cauldron. The universe whispers back, as within, so without. He is grateful for his emerging creation before it arrives, and he believes. Oh, how he believes, and so it is. Looking at the symbols on this card, there's the infinity sign, Lemniscate for infinite power. All is one represents cycles of creation, infinite possibility. He's sitting in a bed of grass, which represents the energy to create something new from the present. Grass seeps fading as the magician creates a new reality from his hand. There are the 4 elements in the card represented as different runes: fire, air, water, and earth. The swirling lights below him is actually his spinning cauldron. It's a spiral galaxy with a white hole center where matter is transformed and created anew. On his arm is the Archangel Metatron's cube tattoo, which contains all the sacred geometry shapes and frequencies that exist in the universe. Cube represents harmony and skill in creation, the highest frequencies, and it reminds us to pay attention to our thoughts. All is recorded in the Akashics? Akashics? I'm not sure what that word is. And then generally through the card, there is hermetic wisdom. Your heart and intention is reflected in the cosmos. That hermetic wisdom refers back to Hermes, who I mentioned is kind of the god for this card. The secondary quote on this page for him as well is, "For your faith is the key to your connection, and your connection is the key to your power." Moving on to the High Priestess. The High Priestess sits at the threshold of the Akashic records, with one foot softly rooted in this conscious reality and the other one dipping deeply into the unconscious realm. Between light and dark, she stills her mind and connects to the field of information above her. Eyes fluttering, she senses the tingling sensation of the glyphs, and as the symbols trickle down, she accesses the mysteries beyond the veil. Oh, sweet elucidations of wisdom and insight. Even though her eyes are closed, she invites you to look deeper and see the unseen vision that they hold. With ancient wisdom and a deep connection to the ethers, she understands your path with profound clarity. Her keys: intuition and mystical illumination. She is the keeper of the arcane secrets of the universe. She trusts in her yin energy, waiting instead of pushing, receiving, and rooting instead of reaching. For she knows that patience allows emerging magic to germinate in the void. In stillness, she invites you to find your innate seer and to step into your own translation of the mysteries. On her card, there are some different runes. Manaz, which is for humankind and self-actualization, and Laguz, which is water, flow, intuition, and dreams. Her veil represents her subconscious. The white lines in a vertical line above her are like the chakras connecting to the source. Oh, there's more runes. Oh my gosh. The other two runes are Perthro, which is hidden knowledge, and Wunjo, which is joy. I have no idea where Chris got these runes from, but it's really cool how she's included them in here. She has a third eye open, and basically I kind of noted this as well when I did my own take on trying to interpret the card, but her eyes are both open and closed at the same time. She can see the unseeable, and like intuition, once you notice something, you can't unnotice it. The cross of four directions represents omnipresence and is sometimes seen as a solar cross and balances the moon. The blue colors represent spirituality, mystical. The blue colors represent her being spiritual and mystical. The pomegranates are for fertility, abundance, and linked back to the goddess Persephone. The scroll earrings she's wearing are for wisdom, divine law, and esoteric knowledge. I didn't even realize those earrings were scrolls. That is so cool. The crescent moon is for divine feminine and the unconscious mind. And then the starlight hair is to show that she is the cosmos. So way more meaning packed into this card than I even realized. And the secondary quote for this card is, "You see more than you know more than you think more than you need. Slow down and listen, for your inner sight is a vast landscape of truth." Wow, wow, wow. I'm not even breaking down these full cards, but I feel like there's so much extra meaning that's being unpacked just by reading these little tidbits. Keep it moving. The Empress, Major Arcana number 3. Her story. The Gaian Empress looks out over the earth, her favorite creation, and she sends out a low, nurturing hum from deep within her core, a vibration of love, of grounding energy, of positive answers and outcomes. Her echo reverberates through the fish that swim around her and into the ground beneath her, and she watches it all teem to life with infinite creator potential. With an exhale of love, she leans on her moon scepter and sends gravitational harmony to the oceans and earth. She reminds us that the earth is abundantly fertile and that it can evolve and co-create whatever it can imagine for itself. Mossy forests, oceans, health, romance, epic love stories, creative insight, soul-nurturing stories, and every miracle of life one could imagine. I don't know if I had looked closely enough at the card to realize there's a ton of fish in the ocean. I did notice there were waves over her shoulders. I think I already know this, but yeah, the Empress is linked to Mother Gaia. I think I noted her linkage to some of the other goddesses, but Gaia is from old Greek and Roman mythology, and she was Mother Earth. She was the mother of all Titans. I think I'm saying all of this from memory, and I'm just going to go with it, but that is what I think it was. But kind of mother of all. So the card linking to Mother Gaia is representative of the sacred feminine, fertility, holding us all with her love. The School of Fish is representative of abundance, a situation teeming with life, spiritual gifts. There's moss at the bottom, and that is for being grounded. The branches and leaves are for nature, beauty, creator of life. The full moon scepter is the string of lights connecting around the moon is the scepter, and that is nourishing power. She generally is representative of the daughter of heaven and earth, and she is pregnant with the world, representing growth, expansion, creation energy, the expectation of prosperity. The secondary quote that comes with the Empress is, "You are love, you are ruler, you are nurturer. You are creativity and the miracle of life entwined. You are all of these things, and you are safe to breathe life into the world that you desire to create." The meaning, as Chris has written it, is so beautiful, but part of me has this inkling in the back, remembering Gaia from the Percy Jackson series, where she was very much not the loving Mother Gaia that is described here in this book. But there are many different interpretations of these ancient characters, and Percy Jackson just so happens to be the one that I really read and grew up with. So that's the first one that I'm thinking of. Okay, and now the last major arcana card to catch up on, number 4, the Emperor. His story. The Emperor is a creative, innovative leader, and he knows it. He sits on his Mars throne, contemplating his next move and watching over his domain with the control, assuredness, and the consistent guidance of a skilled leader. He tempers his fiery Aries energy with discipline and strategy, structure, and consistent action, for he knows that this is how he will find success. His ram's skull hanging on the wall is a constant reminder that he must use his power wisely and that selfish motives will lead to his demise. A wise leader looks after his people, shares his energy in service to them, and understands that his strength is a direct reflection of his relationship with others. He understands that the unity of the whole is his greatest asset. Well, that and his collection of imported chessboards. He learns to listen to others' needs as he moves towards his goals. If he is overly pragmatic and forgets to marry his logical mind with his compassion and his heart, he risks being too strict and structured. His disciplined success radiates when he leads with service in his heart and follows with the strategy in his head. So, pretty different from the Empress, but they are counterparts to each other. Looking at some of the symbols, I did piece some of these together correctly, so I'm very proud of myself there. The ram's head connects to Aries and also represents a pioneering spirit and leadership, stubbornness and determination. The chess piece is for strategy and success, the material world. He is a protector and provider, being analytical. The Mars throne is for status, power, authority, assertion, anger, warrior energy, linking back again to Aries. The light around him is divine illumination and guidance. The handkerchief in his pocket is the ability to support the ability to support others emotionally and to show empathy as he leads. I didn't even notice he had a handkerchief in his pocket, so that's a cool one. And then the Ankh tattoo is an ancient Egyptian symbol of life and eternal life, as well as protection. And then the chessboard on the floor is for planning, wisdom, vision. And then finally, the last bit of symbolism here, the red and gold color scheme, it is symbolic of passion, wealth, power, and authority. So a lot of the same things that I had already kind of broken down, plus a couple add-ons. And the secondary quote that comes with the Emperor is, "Leading others means being of service to others. Protect your energy as you move towards success." So that's most of what I've got for you. The next major arcana I'm breaking down is the Hierophant, and now I have this book, so all of this extra tidbits and catch up I've been doing will just be included with all those cards moving forward. And I love it. I think it adds this whole other beautiful layer to the mix as we're doing these readings. And she has this for every single card. There's a little less for the minor arcana, but not really, actually. I say that and I'm immediately taking it back. It has a lot of the same information breakdown. The only thing really different is that the minor arcana don't get their own dedicated spreads. Each major arcana has its own spread, but that kind of makes sense since the major arcana are more representative of major milestones and pivotal points, whereas the minor arcana are filling in those gaps. And at the end of the book, just to kind of wrap up what all is in here, she has a comparison of the Rider-Waite deck and the Light Seers cards. Not necessarily in a lot of depth, but kind of showcasing some of these similar and different symbols that are in each of the cards. And then after that, she has kind of some summary tables about different correspondence of the cards to different elements, runes, astrology, all these things that I will eventually try and learn to interpret. And then she has a runes cheat sheet at the end. So I might try to learn more about all these runes as we go through it. Or maybe I'll just learn them as we're doing it. But that is pretty much this entire book broken down, or very, very high level summarized. And at the end, she has a little poem to the seers out there. "And into the gray we follow, like 1,000 flickering stars, and there in a sunlit hollow we lose and find what is ours. And into the shadow we wonder what that glimmer of light has in store, and then into the light we remember that at some point we dreamt of much more. So into the gray we meander, holding hope as we anchor our hearts. Then we pray and we dance and surrender, finding courage and trust in new starts. And into the light we face bravely, like the faces of love in the flesh. And we smile both wildly and gravely, and with spirit and source we enmesh. So, into the gray we follow, like 1,000 flickering stars, and there in a sunlit hollow we lose and find what is ours." And she has a little note next to it that says, "May you find what is yours, sweet seer." Chris Ann has my entire heart. This deck is beautiful. The messages with each of the cards is gorgeous. And this book is just a fantastic way to add more meaning and more layers to everything. As I've already been working on some of my research for the next episodes coming up, I have been reading through a lot of the different pages, reading a lot of the meanings and the stories with lots of the different cards, and it is so helpful for interpretations. Yeah, that's it. I won't keep saying the same things over and over again because that's no fun. That's no fun. Okay, so I'm flipping over to the spread that I want to do this time around, and it is called the Anxious Loops spread. I am going to take a very short break, and when I'm back, I will be doing this reading for all of you, so stay tuned and let's find out why I'm feeling anxious and what I can do to stop it, or maybe not stop it, but what I can do to work through it. Okay, as I said before, I am going to do this ancient loop spread that is in the Light Seers Guidebook. So if you're watching the video, you can see it, but I'll also post a photo of the spread that I'm doing. But basically, it is a 4-card draw. The first one is the root, I am, why am I feeling fear and anxiety? 2 is embrace it, I am safe. A loving message to my heart and mind. 3, transmute it, I am love. Compassionate action steps of transformation and change. And then 4 is heal it, I am here. Illuminate the path towards healing. I don't quite know what all of this will really mean as I draw my cards, but I have it here on the side as I do my spread. So first, as usual, I am going to be shuffling my cards. Shuffle, shuffle. And for the spread, I am going to fan them out and then draw 4 cards randomly. So let's do that this way. Okay, so I'm just going to draw 4 cards for myself. So first, the root. Second, embrace it. Third, transmute it. And fourth, heal it. So I've drawn my 4 cards that I will be using for this reading. And now I'm just gonna flip them over one by one. And as I've been getting more practiced with the different cards' meanings, I might actually know some of these, or I might do a lighter spread so I'm not spending too much time trying to read the guidebook for it, but let's see. First is the 7 of Wands reversed. Interesting. And in reverse. And then second one, okay, I'll go through these cards as I'm flipping them over because I do think I know enough to do a high-level interpretation for most of these at least. But 7 of Wands is protecting yourself and making sure that you are grounding yourself. So in the reverse position, it could mean that the root of why I'm feeling some fear and anxiety is that I'm not doing that. I'm not protecting myself and I'm not protecting my interests as much as I should. I will double check the card's meaning for that though. The second one, the Ace of Pentacles, reversed as well. This one is supposed to be a loving message to my heart and mind. The Ace of Pentacles is about new ventures, new ideas. In reverse, it can mean being scared of that. So maybe part of protecting myself has to do with that. Third, transmute it. compassionate action steps of transformation and change. Well, the Five of Swords is about feeling deeply wounded. So, not necessarily the message I associate with I am love, but there is healing messages in all these cards. And then the fourth one, heal it, the illuminate the path towards healing, is the Six of Wands, also in reverse. Yeah, I'm going to pause this for one quick moment while I go through the book and see what these cards really mean, so then I know I'm for sure interpreting this for myself correctly. Okay, so I've gone through to read more of the meanings of the cards, and I am seeing how this kind of ties together more. I'm thinking this might have to do with either this podcast or my job or just general endeavors in like my career and opportunities that I'm taking right now. But the Seven of Wands in the reverse position is about defending yourself, maybe being misunderstood, a lack of preparation. So as it relates to the first card for this reading and why I'm feeling fear and anxiety, I think it hints more towards feeling like I'm not that prepared, or that it might be easier to give up on something rather than keep pushing forward with it. Maybe defending yourself as you're doing it so you're not overexerting yourself as well, which could definitely be the case because I think between my day job and this, and then still being a normal human being with social plans and taking care of myself and everything else going on, it's a lot to juggle. And sometimes I wonder if this podcast was biting more than I could chew, but it is still really fun. So I don't want to, but I can see how this maybe resonates with that thought right now. And looking at some of the other cards in here, the second one is a loving message to my heart and mind. So something to help embrace it is the Ace of Pentacles. And in the reverse position, it can mean needing to create a strong foundation to support your dreams, needing to prioritize and regretting missed opportunities. And I think that really ties in with what I was saying, especially if it's around this podcast, because this is still beginning state. I need to build the strong foundation that I'm continuing to build off of. I'm still figuring out my groove of what I'm doing and what all I want to do with this whole project, this whole platform that I'm creating for myself. But I don't want to think of this as a missed opportunity later on. So that is one way to embrace it, is I'm still laying that groundwork and I'm still figuring out what to do, but I'm not missing this opportunity and making it something I regret later on. The Five of Swords is in the position for transmute it, compassionate action steps of transformation and change. This card is about, a lot of it is around experiencing loss, but one of the other messages that comes in this card that I think is more applicable with the way I'm interpreting this reading right now is to build your own skills and confidence. You might feel lacking, you might feel some conflict, but you need to just build your skills, build your confidence more, and that will help push you forward. And I think especially looking at this as what is the action step that I can take to help improve myself, that is true. The more I do this, or just generally, the more I kind of improve my confidence and keep stepping forward, the better I'll be at it and the easier it'll become over time. And then the last card is my fourth healing card, illuminate the path towards healing, and that is the Six of Wands reversed. So the Six of Wands in the forward position is about accomplishments, being seen, victory, but in the reverse, It is about wanting a desire or having a desire for acknowledgement, wanting your accomplishments to be seen and recognized by others. And I think the message and the illumination that comes from this for healing is to really recognize my own victories and recognize my own growth instead of waiting or looking towards validation from others. So if I myself am content with what's going on and what I'm building, then that should be more than enough, which generally I think I'm pretty good at. Like, I usually do feel pretty good about what I'm doing, even if there's not a lot of external acknowledgement for it. But I think with anything, it's always hard because you want that validation and you want to be seen and to be recognized for all this hard work you're doing. So this one's a tougher spread, honestly. Like, this didn't all click together the way I expected it to. And I also did not expect this anxious loop spread to feel like it resonates more with this podcast. I initially was trying to see how it links to my day job and to work, because I usually have more anxiety around that. But this is more of a personal project that I'm doing with my own time and money because I want to. So in that way, I think there can be a lot more anxiety around projects and pursuits that you are investing so much more of your own energy into, which kind of checks out. So yeah, that's cool. But yeah, this is the first spread I'm doing from this book. It's a pretty cool one. I would not have thought to do a spread around anxiety otherwise. So this was pretty cool. I am very appreciative of this book, and I'm looking forward to learning many more things with it in hand now. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I think this is probably going to end up being my last content-oriented episode for the year before stepping into the holidays. The rest of the episodes will either be breaks for the holidays, or if I'm able to get them together in time, they will be special content features that I'll be posting and sharing instead. So I'll come back with more heartfelt messages in the coming weeks, but thanks for sticking with me on this journey so far. It has been a crazy, wonderful couple months to wrap up 2024 and kick off this podcast, and I am so excited to keep going strong with this in 2025. One of my New Year's resolutions will be to keep at this podcast. So if this time next year I can be like, hey guys, we're wrapping up 2025 and it's been consistent content, that will be a huge accomplishment for me. That will be a huge win. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how much this grows, how much I continue to grow as I keep learning, and where we are this time next year. Tune in next week. There will definitely be an episode of sorts. And otherwise, I will see you next year for some more learning content and to jump back into the major arcana. See you then. Thank you for listening to Tea and Tarot with Yashna. This episode was produced, hosted, and edited by me, Yashna Bensel, and brought to you by Tea Time Podcasts. The tarot reading was done using the Light Seers deck by Chris Ann, and readings were done using the Tarot for Light Seers Guidebook by Chris Ann. Music was made using SoundRaw. Join me next week for another episode of Tea and Tarot.